Hi everyone, I'm Lucy, and today we're going to dive into something really interesting. In the upcoming dialogue, you'll get to learn some surprising facts about the American flag, how it has changed over time, why it has 13 stripes, and even a fun story about who designed the version we see today. There's a lot to discover, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing these fascinating details. So let's get ready and listen carefully. You might be surprised by what you learn.
Dad, guess what we learned in school today?
Let me see. Was it something about history by any chance?
Yes! We talked about the American flag. Do you know how many different flags the United States has had?
Oh, that's a fun topic. I bet it surprised you to learn that the current flag wasn't always the same. How many versions do you think there have been?
Well, Mrs. Carter said there have been 27 different official versions of the flag. I didn't even know we had more than one.
That's right. The U.S. flag has changed quite a bit over time. Each new version came about when new states joined the Union. The flag had to keep adding stars.
Yeah, that's what Mrs. Carter said. She showed us pictures of all the different flags. But why did we start with only 13 stars and stripes? Was that the number of states back then?
Exactly. When the flag was first designed in 1777, the United States was just 13 colonies, so the stars represented each colony. And the 13 stripes were for the colonies as well. It was a symbol of unity, even though they were all quite different.
Oh, and I think I remember. There was one version called the Betsy Ross flag, right? The one with the stars in a circle?
Yes, that's one of the most famous early versions. According to legend, Betsy Ross, a seamstress in Philadelphia, made that flag with 13 stars arranged in a circle. It was supposed to show that all the colonies were equal, with no colony being more important than the others.
I like that idea. But wait, was Betsy Ross really the one who made it?
Ah, the mystery. Some historians say it's just a story. There's no solid proof she made the first flag, but it's a nice tale that has stuck around for centuries. It's one of those stories people like to believe.
That's so interesting. I didn't know history could be like that. But Dad, what about when more states were added? How did they decide to change the flag each time?
Great question, Mia. After the original 13 stars and stripes, they added stars each time a new state joined. But funnily enough, they also tried adding more stripes at first. For example, when Vermont and Kentucky became states, the flag had 15 stars and 15 stripes.
15 stripes? That must have looked so crowded.
Exactly. It became a bit of a design problem, so eventually they went back to just 13 stripes to honor the original 13 colonies, and they kept adding only stars for each new state.
That's a good idea. Imagine if we had 50 stripes now.
It would be quite the visual mess. So now we have 50 stars for each state and 13 stripes for the colonies. And every time a new state is admitted, the flag is officially updated on the 4th of July after that state joins.
That's so cool. Mrs. Carter said the current flag design was actually created by a high school student in 1958. He entered a contest, and his design was chosen when Alaska and Hawaii became states. Can you believe that?
I can. His name was Robert Heft, and he was just 17 years old. It's pretty amazing that a student designed the flag we still use today.
Imagine if I could design a flag. It would be so colorful and fun, maybe even some glitter stars.
Glitter stars, huh? That would definitely stand out. But you'd probably have to keep it simple if it was going to represent a whole country.
True, true. But Dad, has the flag ever changed for reasons other than new states?
Not really. It's mostly about statehood, but there have been unofficial flags used during different periods. For instance, during the American Revolution, before the official flag was adopted, people used a bunch of different banners like the Grand Union flag. That one looked like the British flag mixed with stripes, and it was used before independence.
That's wild. I had no idea the flag was so flexible. I always thought it was just the one we have now.
The flag really has evolved with the country. Each version marks a point in American history. Flags are like a visual timeline of the nation's growth.
It's like the country's story is written in stars and stripes. I never thought of it that way.
That's exactly right. Every change in the flag reflects a change in the nation. And that's why the flag is such an important symbol for Americans. It shows our past, our unity, and our journey as a country.
Wow, Dad, I'm glad we talked about this. It makes me appreciate the flag a lot more. It's not just a piece of cloth, it has so much history behind it.
I'm happy to hear that, Mia. History is always more than just facts and dates. It's about understanding the stories behind those facts.
I think I'm starting to get it. History is kind of like a big, never ending story.
Exactly. And the flag? Well, it's one of the key characters in America's story.
Thanks for the lesson, Dad. I can't wait to share all this with my friends at school tomorrow.
Any time, Mia. You know I love talking about history. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one teaching others about it.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy, and today we're going to talk about something really interesting from the dialogue between George and Mia. They discuss the history of the American flag, how it changed over time, and the meaning behind the stars and stripes. The American flag has had many different designs, and each one tells part of the country's history. Now, let's dive into some of the important words and phrases from their conversation. These words will help you talk about symbols, history, and design. Let's start with the word represent. In the conversation, George said this: "The stars represented each colony." Represent. Represent. To represent something means to stand for or symbolize it. So in this case, the stars on the American flag represent or stand for the original 13 colonies. For example, we can say, "The dove represents peace." Here's another. "The heart symbol represents love." Did you know that many things in daily life represent something else? For instance, red often represents danger or warning. Flags are used by countries to represent their values and history. Every time you see a flag, think about what it might represent for the people who live there. Next, let's look at symbol. Here's what George said. It was a symbol of unity. Symbol. Symbol. A symbol is something that stands for or represents an idea. For example, the American flag is a symbol of freedom. Another example would be, a rainbow is often seen as a symbol of hope. Symbols are everywhere. In school, you probably see symbols like a bell, which represents the time for class. On your phone, there are symbols for apps and messages. Even colors can be symbols. Think about what symbols you see every day and how they give us quick information without needing words. Now let's talk about the word stripes. Remember this part from George? The 13 stripes were for the colonies as well. Stripes. Stripes. Stripes are long, narrow lines, and they are part of many flag designs. On the American flag, the stripes represent the original 13 colonies. For example, the zebra has black and white stripes. Another one. My shirt has red and blue stripes. Stripes aren't just on flags or clothes, they're in nature too. Think of animals like tigers and zebras, whose stripes help them blend into their environment. Even on the road, stripes tell us where to drive. There's a lot more to stripes than we often realize. Another word from the conversation is design. Here's how Mia mentioned it. The current flag design was actually created by a high school student in 1958. Design. Design. Design can be both a noun and a verb. It means to create or plan something, and the noun form refers to how something looks. You can design a building, a website, or even a piece of clothing. For instance, she designed her own dress for the party. Here's another. I like the design of this chair. It's very modern. Design is all around us. Every object you see was designed by someone. Whether it's your phone, your school bag, or even your classroom, someone thought about its design. You can be a designer too. Think about how you would design your dream house or even your own flag. Let's move on to according to. George used it like this. According to legend, Betsy Ross made that flag. According to. According to. According to means you are giving information that comes from someone or something else. It's like saying, based on what someone said. For example, according to the weather report, it will rain tomorrow. Another example. According to my teacher, we have a test next week. This phrase is super useful in both writing and speaking. You can use it to refer to things you've read or heard. For example, according to the news is a common way to start a sentence. Whenever you get new information, you can say where it came from by using according to. Next, we'll look at reflect. George said, "Every change in the flag reflects a change in the nation." Reflect. Reflect. Reflect can mean to show or represent something. When you say something reflects something else, you're saying it shows what's happening or how things are. For instance, the mirror reflects my face. Another example. Her smile reflects her happiness. Reflect is a word you might hear in different situations. In science, it can mean light bouncing off a surface, like when the sun reflects off water. But it can also mean that someone's mood or feelings are reflected in their actions or expressions. Next time you see a happy person, think about how their smile reflects their joy. Now let's talk about the phrasal verb come about. George used it here. Each new version came about when new states joined the Union. Come about. Come about. Come about means something happens or begins. It explains how something started or was created. For example, the idea came about during our meeting. Another one. How did this project come about? Come about is an interesting way to describe how something started. You can use it for projects, ideas, or even friendships. For example, how did you meet your best friend? Maybe it came about during a school activity or by chance. Using this phrase makes your sentences sound more natural. Let's talk about admit now. George said, "Every time a new state is admitted, the flag is officially updated." Admit. Admit. To admit something means to allow it in or accept it. In the context of the dialogue, it means to officially let a state join the Union. For example, they admitted new members to the club. Here's another. The school admitted 50 new students this year. Admit is used in different situations. You can admit students to a school, members to a club, or even guests to a party. It's also used when you agree to something, like admitting you made a mistake. So next time you hear the word admit, think about whether it's about letting someone in or agreeing to something. All right, those were some key points from today's dialogue. We learned about how different words like represent, design, and symbol connect to history and everyday life. If you have any questions or need more examples, feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for joining today, and I can't wait to see you in the next lesson.